The high sun of old Kaiden came and went and came again, and through it all the Kai knew the darkness. It clung to this lost world like a shroud. It permeated everything, a hard, dark substance of black despair, and their Kai empathies had little defense against it. It was a grief, a sorrow, a terrible loneliness that sang the soul of this old world. They could only endure it and suffer. Through it all, Elephane sat broken by his grief, withdrawn. It was stolid Harlan who carried away the body that had been Natea. He found a clearing in a grove where a trace of ancient resonance remained and gave the body to the soil. It would add to the little Kai essence that clung to this remote place. The others tried to reach out to Elephane to comfort him, but they had to withdraw. His grief was too much like the awful soul darkness that hung over this world. They could bear no more of it. Sephironia turned her senses inward, concentrating on the healing of her broken arm. On this world where her will was so damped, her senses so battered by all-pervading sorrow, it might take days to mend. Winifreda paced and peered, casting about for a trace of hope, for a means to the impossible, a means to restore the broken cord. It seemed helpless. The cord is 5 or 5s, but never only 4, and now there were only 4 of them on this hostile world. From a high place, the Faya watched as evening descended over a valley below. Clusters of little lights winked on. She reached out her senses, then drew back, stung by the aching sorrow that emanated from them. Those she knew were the abodes of the people of this planet, children of the Rapori of ancient times. It was from them that the darkness came. What sort of people could they be? Her heart cried out for the misery of creatures whose awful loneliness could shroud a world in sorrow. She damped her empathy and turned away. She was still too weak to long endure it. But she had tasted it now, the darkness of old Kaenden. She knew what it was. These people had come to sentience, lacking the thing that made sentience endurable, the ability to share and to comfort. If they had any of that at all, she could not perceive it within the immersing, constant individual loneliness that made up the darkness. And that darkness was pain. The haunted aloneness of the people was intense, and the Kains shared their pain. They could not help sharing it. To be Kain was to know. Another day came and went. Harlan brought food from the forest where it was plentiful, and water from a high spring where it was pure. Sephironia concentrated on the healing of her arm, and Elephane, Fey Roast, Willmaster, singer of the Censter, and leader of the expedition, sat apart and remote, lost in the bleak world of his own. Winifreda Faya relieved her own sadness by coating it with exasperation. When again the sun rose and Elephane had not moved, she brought water from the spring and threw it on him. The abused hurt look he gave her was better than his silent grief. "There is work to do," she told him. "We are here. Now we must find a Korad Bane for Nendakeda." His sadness heavy on him, Elephane arose and stood over her, looking down at her ancient tiny face. "Faya, it is no use. Whatever we might find, the cord is broken. Without 5, without Natea, we can never leave here. Nendakaida is doomed, and so are we." He looked at the alien ground beneath his feet, and his shoulders sagged. With without Natea. He did not finish the thought. Without Natea, nothing really mattered. Winifreda planted her hands on her hips. With eyes and mind she stung him. If you grieve so, Elephane, how can you sit and do nothing? How can you ignore what Natea asked of you in her last moment? What she asked? He stared dumbly at her. Then he understood. How had he forgotten? Had he been so lost that even his senses had departed him? Find me, Natea whispered. I will try, but you must find me. Winifreda's lustrous eyes held him. Yes, she tried to leap. But here? To whom? Sophronia did not receive her, and who else could? She could not reach a male, or a Fea. Besides, we were all too close. Still, her eyes held him. Her mind hung strong and intense. He wondered, as always, what such a mind might see. But what she suggested, how could it be possible? There's no one else here, Winifreda, he pointed out. There is a world here, Elephane. She swept her arms outward. Out there, all over, there are intelligent creatures. Maybe only the children of Rapore, but we are not certain of that. Once there was Kai kindred on this world. Is it not possible, then, that there may yet be? Is it not possible that even one of the Dark Ones might have received her? Can you declare absolutely that our Natea found no one, that she leaped the void? Alphine looked about him at this strange old world, and sensed its encumbering mind darkness as a pervasive, numbing ache. He felt the Fea encouraging him with, in the background, Harlan and Sophronia supporting. Such a forlorn hope she presented, that somewhere, in some lost corner, there might be a pixie descendant who happened to be receptive at the moment Natea died, who might now be, in part, his beloved, that Natea's depth of empathy might have been so great that even on this soul dark world she could have found such a one, a receptive female sentient with the empathy to receive a cast spirit. Impossible, his mind told him. Even the people of this world had empathy, there being no such darkness. But could he be certain that all of them were so? He concentrated on the possibilities, so remote, and felt the support of Winifreda and Farina, even of Harlan, up at the spring. It is a hope, they assured him. It is the only hope we have. Without Natea there could be no cord and no returning, nor would there be other cords. Of all the Phaedine, only Winifreda had been able to grasp the ancient lore. Without Natea, grief washed over him again, dulling his senses. You have the sinister, Winifreda told him, and you have the song. You must try, Elephane. I will try, he decided. I will go among the people of this world, if I can tolerate it, and learn how to begin. Then, if I can, I will go and search. Toward the rising sun, Winifreda reminded him. Those who have leaped always cast in the direction of rotation, and the distances are similar, 50 horizons. We don't know how such things would occur here, if they could occur at all. It is a place to start your search. I will go, he said. I will try. The rest of you can begin here. Maybe you can discover what it is on this world that fends off the Karad. Harlan came down from the spring, and they joined hands, the four of them, to sense the song of parting. Their desperation was a shared thing. They all knew how remote was the possibility that Elephane could find Antea's spirit, and they all knew he might never return, but there was no other course to follow. They blessed him with their harmonies. They wished him well. Then Elephane Fairus, leader of the first expedition to this world from another, set out to search for the tiny spark of scintillance that was the spirit of his lost love. Behind him he heard Winifreda's voice. "Put that water down, Harlan, and you, Sophronia, your arm is healed enough. You no longer need to sing to it. We have work to do." The place where they had landed was high on a mountain, a cove where rock outcrops nestled a little valley, rich in flora and deep with loam. Elphane's strong fingers clung to rock faces as he clambered down a cliff. From its base, he descended a series of shelves in as many jumps, resonating momentum into the rock beneath his feet each time he landed, draining the shock of impact. It was not his best skill, this balancing of an inertia through the harmonics of muscle and bone, absorbing impact and resonating it back into surfaces. Harlan was much better at such things. The sturdy elder Rayton had a natural affinity for momentum and a mastery of inertia. But with the aid of the sinister at his throat, sorting and amplifying his cast harmonics, Elephane could manage. Finally, the mountain sloped out in a long shoulder, and he began to run, each long stride covering distances on the downhill grade. He held his pace, absorbing and storing momentum against the rises, using it when he needed it. The inertia balancing taxed him. He had to concentrate on it. A Cayenne who stored too much momentum and released it at the wrong moment could splatter himself, or run right into the ground. It was a dangerous practice for the unskilled. But as he put the thrusting of the mountain behind him, and the task became simpler. On the last long, gentle downward slope, he collected enough momentum to carry him far out onto the facing plain before the sun had set behind the peak. He noticed creatures around him, placid dumb brutes and wild things, many of them mammal like himself, and in great variety. Their existence was a surprise. On Nadakita, only people were mammal, Kai and all the kindred spirit races. All other creatures were egg layers or spore bearers, just as the lore said had inhabited this world in very ancient times. Yet here he saw feathered flying things as well, as on Nandaketa, and quick, small replicas of the reptiles and serpents that were familiar to him. He slowed enough to race a herd of pronghorned animals that shied away at first, then returned at his call to cavort around him for a time. Their innocent, persistent company was a slight relief from the constant eroding darkness. Then, as he drew nearer to the places of the children of the Rapapore, the darkness seemed to build. It grew more intense. It was not the darkness of night coming on. Elephane could see perfectly well in the absence of daylight. This other darkness was a weight on the soul, a feeling of grief so strong and so general that it dimmed the senses. The old lore was hazy about the Rapori, except that they had resembled Kai in physical ways. When Elephane finally found his first human, he learned that the resemblance was uncanny. The creature walked along a road, peering into the night. It wore garments woven of fiber and carried a parcel. Undetected, Elephane followed the creature, studying it. It was a male of mature years, and appeared startlingly cayenne, except for minor details. The hair on its head was too long, and the ends of the hairs had been cut. Its eyes and mouth were oddly straight-set, its nose slightly too protuberant, a face a cayenne could have worn, but not with any degree of pride. The planes of that face were flat, blocky. The ears were small and round, set slightly low. The creature was a hand-length shorter than Elephane, and heavier through the body. Coming close, Elephane sensed the terrible blindness of the creature. It had eyes, ears, a nose, taste, and touch that functioned in the mid-ranges, but that was all. It lacked any perception of the ranges between what its ears heard and what its eyes saw, or those beyond, and had almost no empathy. It lived within itself, a prisoner in its own body, trapped and lonely in a working mind, unable to range beyond it. This close to the creature, Elephane could separate the components of the awful darkness it generated, could analyze them. Fear was part of it, remorse, the pain of understood mortality, greed and guilt, anger and loneliness vied and balanced in a dance of torment. And shrouded in it all was a hopeless longing, a blind drive to somehow be better, to be more. The turmoil of the thing's psyche was a tangle of fragile balances encased in a lonely shell. Surprisingly, though, there was more. Within the fiber, Elephane sensed a humor as hard and quick as he had known, and strength of determination that awed him. Sensing the strange, tragic creature, feeling its feelings, Elephane felt deep sadness for it. He understood now what had driven his own people's ancestors away. But now there was work to do. He must learn the local forms of communication. He knew from the creature's sensory limitations the range of pulse in which to search. Empathy as tightly under control as he could manage. The will master reached for meanings and let himself be noticed. The creature looked around, jerked, and stepped back. As it spoke, Elephane compared its intents to the sounds it uttered, the visual messages it gave. Where the hell did you come from? Elephane extrapolated from sense to meaning, meaning to sound, and learned the complex sounds but lacked the vocabulary to respond. What's the idea of sneaking up that way? The human bristled, then peered closely at him. Hey, what are you made up for anyway? Is some kind of a joke? When the cayenne did not respond, the human took another step backwards. Now look, buddy, I'm just going my own way, not hurting anybody. Hell, it's a free road, but if you're hopped up on something, you just back off, okay? Elephane tried the language. It was short on tonal variation, but surprisingly complex within its narrow auditory range. I'm just going my own way, not hurting anybody, he mimicked. The creature relaxed a bit. Well now, that's better. Hey, how come you dressed up like that? You an actor or something? Some kind of joke, Elephane said. The hell you say? It looked around. What kind? When Elephane didn't answer, it peered at him again. What's the matter? Why don't you talk to me? Excellent. Elephane was gaining key phrases. Why don't you talk to me? He encouraged, and started walking. The creature hesitated and came along with him. Okay, it said. I don't know what the hell this is all about, but I guess we're going the same direction. Tell you though, You're not going to flag a lift looking like that. If some 18-wheeler comes by, I'd appreciate it if you could just sort of fade while I get myself a ride, okay? Okay. I'm going on into Clover, it said. Where are you going? On into Clover. I'm not going to flag any lift. Damn right you're not. That's what I said. You'll have a long walk, though. Things look close out in this country, but they're not. Lots of bear miles out here. You been here before? Alphane had not yet found the respondent negative. He said nothing. You sound like you're from California, the creature said. That's where I'm from, California. I can always tell a Frisco native by the way he talks. Frisco, right? Right. Me too. By the time lights of a large vehicle showed behind them, Alphane had a working knowledge of basic California. As requested, he faded before the truck pulled up and watched unnoticed as the creature flagged a ride. By the time the trucker let them off in Clover, the creature riding inside and the Cayenne on top, Alphane had added to California and picked up a good bit of Texas.